So, I've got something super exciting for you today. And, I think you're going to love this one.
Oh, yeah? What have you got for me?
Well, you know how we love talking about these incredible business stories on Behind the Billions, right? Today we're diving into someone who's just, absolutely fascinating. I mean, we're talking about Richard Branson, and I can't wait to get into it.
Richard Branson, wow. The Virgin guy. I've always wondered about his story.
Oh my gosh, yes! And there's so much more to him than just Virgin. Did you know he started his first business when he was just 16 years old? And now he's literally sending people to space.
That's incredible. Going from a teenage entrepreneur to space tourism, that's quite a journey.
Exactly. And you know what I love about his story? It's not just about the business success. It's about this incredible spirit of adventure and, pushing boundaries. I mean, we're talking about someone who's built this massive empire worth billions, but still manages to have these amazing adventures and try new things.
Sounds like we've got quite a story to unpack today.
Oh, you have no idea. This is going to be so good. So, let me tell you about Richard Branson's early years because, well, it's actually really fascinating how it all started.
Where did he grow up?
Right. So he was born in Black Heath, London in 1950. And what's really interesting is that his early life wasn't exactly, smooth sailing, you know? He actually struggled a lot in school because, well, he had dyslexia and ADHD, which wasn't really understood back then.
That must have been really challenging in the education system of the 1950s and 60s.
Oh my gosh, yes! And get this. His headmaster actually told him on his last day of school that he'd either end up in prison or become a millionaire. Can you believe that?
Was his family supportive through all of this?
That's actually one of the most amazing parts. His parents were just incredibly supportive, especially his mom. She was an entrepreneur herself, and she actually used to make and sell wooden tissue boxes and waste paper bins. Like mother like son, right?
So when did he start showing his own entrepreneurial spirit?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. So, at just 16, just think about that age for a second. He started this magazine called Student. And you know what's crazy? He managed to get interviews with people like Mick Jagger and other huge celebrities of the 60s.
At 16, how did he even pull that off?
It's just pure Branson, you know? He had this incredible ability to just go for things. He didn't let his age or his dyslexia hold him back. He used to run the whole operation from a church basement, and he would just pick up the phone and call people. No fear, just pure determination.
That's pretty inspiring, especially considering his challenges.
Exactly. And you know what I find really powerful about this part of his story? It shows that sometimes what people see as disadvantages can actually become advantages. Like, his dyslexia actually helped him learn to delegate and communicate better, which became super important later in his business career.
So how did he go from publishing a magazine to starting Virgin Records?
Oh my gosh, it's such a fascinating story. So, he basically started selling records through his magazine, right? And he was actually selling them for way less than the big stores, which was kind of revolutionary at the time.
Where was he operating from?
So this is really cool. He was still working from that same church crypt where he ran Student Magazine. But get this, he wasn't just selling records, he was actually building something much bigger. In 1972, he took this huge leap and opened his first proper record store on Oxford Street. And then he bought this beautiful old manor house and turned it into a recording studio.
The famous Manor Studio, right?
Yes. And you know what's really interesting? The very first album they recorded there was Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, which just, completely took off. It was absolutely massive, and it basically gave Virgin Records its first big break.
What made Virgin Records different from other labels at the time?
They were just so brave, you know? When nobody else would touch the Sex Pistols, Virgin signed them. Other labels thought they were too controversial, too risky, but Branson just saw an opportunity where others saw a problem.
Did that strategy pay off?
Oh my gosh, did it ever? They started signing all these amazing artists, right, like the Rolling Stones, Culture Club, Phil Collins. And what's really incredible is that they weren't just signing the big names. They were also bringing all this avant-garde music to the public, stuff that other labels wouldn't touch.
Sounds like they really changed the industry.
Totally. By 1980, Virgin Records had gone international, and Branson's net worth was, it was in the millions. But you know what's really fascinating about all of this? It wasn't just about the money for him. He was really passionate about bringing new music to people, about challenging the status quo, about doing things differently.
So, how did Branson make the leap from music to airlines? That seems like quite a jump.
Oh my goodness, it's actually such an amazing story. So, back in 1984, Branson was on his way to Puerto Rico when his flight got canceled, right? And instead of just waiting around, he did something completely crazy. He actually chartered a plane, borrowed a blackboard, and wrote Virgin Airlines, $39 single flight to Puerto Rico.
Wait, he just started an airline right there?
Well, not exactly, but that's what gave him the idea. He saw all these people who were stuck, just like him, and he thought, you know what? The airline industry needs shaking up. And that's exactly what he did with Virgin Atlantic.
Was it successful right from the start?
Oh gosh, no. The early days were really tough. British Airways was like this giant competitor, and they actually launched what Branson calls their Dirty Tricks campaign against Virgin. But you know what's incredible? Virgin Atlantic just kept growing and growing, and it really showed everyone that Branson could succeed in completely different industries.
What other industries did he expand into?
So many. Like in the 1990s, he launched Virgin Trains, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Cola, you name it. But here's what's really fascinating. Not everything worked out. Virgin Cola, for instance, totally flopped against Coca-Cola. But Branson has this amazing attitude about failure. He says it's just, like, part of the learning process.
Did he have a strategy for choosing which industries to enter?
Absolutely. He always looked for markets where customers were getting a raw deal and where he thought Virgin could offer something better. And get this, he would actually test new business ideas by starting really small. Like with Virgin Mobile, they started in one market before going global.
That's pretty smart.
Right? And you know what else is really interesting? He built everything around the Virgin brand. Like, the name Virgin became this symbol of challenging the big guys, of doing things differently. It didn't even matter what industry it was. If people saw that Virgin logo, they knew what to expect.
So, speaking of challenging the big guys, let's talk about probably his most ambitious venture yet, Virgin Galactic. What made him decide to literally shoot for the stars?
Oh my goodness, this is like one of my favorite parts of the Branson story. So back in 2004, right? Branson was looking at what was happening with space technology, and he saw this incredible opportunity. Like, no one was really thinking about making space travel available to regular people. Well, regular rich people at least.
How much does it actually cost to go up there?
So, get this. A ticket on Virgin Galactic costs about $200,000. And you know what's crazy? People were lining up to buy tickets before the spacecraft was even built.
That's a lot of faith in Branson.
Totally. And the development process was it was really challenging. They had setbacks, they had test flight issues, but Branson just wouldn't give up. And then, in July 2021, he did something absolutely incredible. He actually went up himself.
What was that flight like?
It was just amazing. So, the spacecraft, called VSS Unity, went up to about 53 miles above Earth. Branson and his crew experienced weightlessness, saw the curve of the Earth, and made history. He actually beat Jeff Bezos to become the first billionaire to reach space in his own spacecraft.
Did he say anything about the experience?
Yes, he called it the experience of a lifetime and said that looking down at Earth from space was just life-changing. But you know what I think is really interesting? He was 70 years old when he did this, making him the third oldest person to fly to space at that time.
That's incredible for someone who started out selling records from a church basement.
Right? And here's what really gets me. Even with all the delays and challenges, he never lost sight of his dream to make space tourism a reality. Like, that's just so Branson, isn't it? Taking these massive risks that everyone thinks are crazy and somehow making them work.
Let's shift gears a bit. Beyond all the business ventures, I hear Branson's actually done quite a lot of humanitarian work.
Oh my goodness, yes. So, like one of the most incredible things he did was working with Nelson Mandela back in the late 90s. They had this idea, right, to bring together this small group of global leaders to work on solving really difficult conflicts around the world.
What came out of that?
So that actually became the Elders, which, and this is really cool, was officially launched in 2007 in Johannesburg. We're talking about people like Kofi Annan, who became the chair, and just these amazing world leaders coming together to tackle global issues.
What kind of issues do they focus on?
So they work on everything from climate change to human rights and peace-building initiatives. But you know what's really interesting about Branson? He doesn't just throw money at problems. He actually gets involved, like personally invested in these causes.
How so?
Well, for example, in 2006, he made this huge pledge, $3 billion over 10 years to combat global warming. And he started the Carbon War Room, which is all about finding entrepreneurial solutions to climate change. Like, he really believes business has a crucial role in solving these global problems.
Has he done anything else for climate change?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been super vocal about it, and he actually uses his influence to bring people together. Like, in 2008, he hosted this environmental gathering on his private island with entrepreneurs, celebrities, world leaders, all focused on discussing climate solutions. And you know what's really amazing? He's also been a huge advocate for drug policy reform, wildlife conservation, even speaking out against the death penalty. What?
Sounds like he really tries to use his platform for good.
Exactly. And what I find really inspiring is that he keeps pushing for change, even when it's not the popular thing to do. Like, he's not afraid to take stands on controversial issues if he believes it's the right thing to do.
So I've always wondered about Branson's personal life. What's he like outside of all the business stuff?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So, first of all, he lives on this absolutely incredible private island called Necker Island, which he bought back in, I think it was the late 70s for something like $180,000.
Wait, that's it? Just $180,000 for an entire island?
I know, right? But here's what's really fascinating about Richard. He's not just sitting around on his island relaxing. He's like constantly pushing himself to break world records and do these absolutely crazy adventures.
What kind of records are we talking about?
So, get this. He actually became the oldest person to kite surf across the English Channel. And then in 2014, he broke another record by kite surfing with 3 other people on the same board. Like, who even thinks of doing that?
That's pretty impressive for someone running a massive business empire.
Oh, but there's more. Back in the 80s and 90s, he was really into hot air balloon adventures. He actually crossed both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans in a balloon. And you know what's really interesting about Branson? He has this philosophy that if you're not having fun, it's not worth doing.
Even in business?
Especially in business. He's always said that, like, business should be an adventure. And he really lives by that motto, even when things go wrong. And trust me, he's had his share of setbacks. He just keeps this amazingly positive attitude and treats everything as a learning experience.
Sounds like quite a character.
Absolutely. And you know what? He's managed to maintain this really balanced family life too. He's been married to his wife Joan since 1989, has 2 grown children, and still finds time for all these adventures. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
You know, looking at everything we've covered today about Richard Branson, what would you say is his biggest impact?
Oh my goodness, that's such a fascinating question because, his impact is just absolutely massive on so many levels. Like, first of all, he completely changed how we think about building businesses. He took this totally different approach where he'd just jump into industries he knew nothing about and disrupt them entirely.
Right, and he wasn't afraid to take on these huge established companies.
Exactly. And what's really incredible is that he did it all while maintaining this amazing sense of social responsibility. Like, he's not just about making money, right? He's been this huge advocate for environmental causes, and he's put literally billions into developing clean energy solutions and fighting climate change.
I've got to say, it's pretty inspiring how he combines business with trying to make the world better.
Absolutely. And you know what really stands out to me? It's how he's shown that you can be successful while still being, like, genuinely human. He's proven that you don't have to be this cold corporate figure to build something incredible. You can have fun, take risks, care about people and the planet, and still build this amazing business empire.
Well, that's all we've got time for on today's episode of Behind the Billions. Thanks for joining us.
And remember, everyone, in Branson's own words, screw it, let's do it.